And a very good morning to you, John Fradgley from the Bell Legal Group, back with you for another program of The Law and You. In fact, the second program for the year. So it was great to have so many people call last week for our first program. I think we had about half a dozen callers. So certainly very pleased to see all those calls coming in and hope we can repeat that today. Don't forget, if you want some advice today, you need to get on the telephone as soon as you can. 55208888 is our number. That's 55208888. South of the Tweed River, of course, put 07 in front of that number. And don't forget that you can send questions in to our website or to our email address, which is talkback@4crb.com. So if you want to send a question or a query in, that can go to, in fact, I think you can send that into the law and you at 4crb.com.au. I'm just looking at an email that we've actually received, so I'll need to double check on that. But I think the normal address is as I say, talkback@4crb.com. So I'm not sure where that other address came from. It may be that it didn't get through and it was actually resent to the correct address. So yes, in fact, it was resent to general mail. So the correct email address is talkback@4crb.com if you're wanting to send a question in. But you need to send those questions in no later than Monday, so that we can deal with them on the Tuesday program. Because obviously emails coming in this morning while the program's going live to air, there's often not sufficient time to be able to read them and provide advice before the program starts. So if you're able to get to the telephone, give us a call right now, 55208888. But while we're waiting for some calls to come through, I will deal with this email that came in, which states that a mother has left her entire estate to her 3 children equally, with the proviso that the youngest child, aged 51 on her death, has life tenancy in the home where that person had resided for several years as the carer for the mother. The estate just comprises the home, which is obviously the major asset, a motor vehicle, and a small amount of cash at bank. Now, the eldest child is 62, or was 62 at the time of the mother's death, and in all probability, the 51-year-old life tenant, who apparently is in very good health, will outlive the other 2 older children. There's an 11 and a 9-year difference in age, so the other one must be about 60, and the eldest one 62, the youngest 51. That being so, the older children will not receive any benefit from disposal of the family home because of the life interest that's been provided to the youngest child. So the query is, can the will be contested on the grounds that it is in fact inequitable? The intent of equal shares can't be achieved in all probability during the lifetime of the older 2 children because the younger child, as I said, is 11 years younger and in good health. So the first thing that we need to look at in relation to this query is when the mother passed away, because if she passed away in Queensland, then there's a requirement that you give notice within 6 months from date of death of intention to contest a will, and you must commence proceedings within 9 months. Now, you can in fact, as long as you give notice and commence those proceedings within 9 months, that's okay. But after 6 months, the executor is legally entitled to deal with the estate, although here, given that the property is being held for a life interest, that would not likely happen. Now, if it was in New South Wales, there is the usual requirement is that notice of intention to proceed must be given within 12 months, and ideally that proceedings are commenced within 12 months. But in New South Wales, after 6 months, you can publish a notice of intention to distribute the estate, giving 30 days notice. So look, on first blush, looking at this problem, yes, clearly it is, it would appear to be inequitable, because the older 2 children are going to be held out of any benefit from the estate. But then the the situation of the younger child who's been a carer for many years for the mother needs to be looked at as well, and what the likely outcome for that child would be if the estate or if the house was sold, if there was an order made the house be sold. The court will look at the financial position of each of the children. So that's one of the things that they'll look at. The other point that was mentioned was that the younger child may have been present when the mother signed the will in the solicitor's office, and the mother wasn't in the best of health. So the other question that was raised was, could there be any question of undue influence? Well, obviously that would need to be investigated as well. So what I would be recommending to the person who sent the email in is that they get legal advice ASAP, because bear in mind those time limits that run, and if you're out of time to commence proceedings, there may be a basis upon which the time can be extended, but the courts look at those situations very carefully, and so the sooner someone takes action, the better in these circumstances. So I think that the person who sent the query in certainly does need to recommend to these people that they get legal advice. The two children who are receiving effectively nothing under the will and will not receive a share of the house if the life tenancy proceeds in its normal course. So that's what I would be suggesting that you do there. But enough of that. We've got a caller online. It's 12 and a half minutes past 9, and we say a very good morning to Patrick. Good morning, Patrick. How are you today?
Good morning, John.
How can we help you today?
I've got a problem. My landlady has died.
Oh dear.
And she died on the 11th of December, and I've got her deposit book, which I pay into her account every 2 weeks, and the account has been closed.
Oh dear.
So I haven't been able to pay my rent for the last for 6 weeks.
Right. Do you know who the executor of the will is?
No, I don't.
Right.
I know there's two daughters who the unit was going to be left to, but
right.
I don't know where to contact them, and I haven't been able to contact them. So what I've been trying to find out, I rang the
Residential Tenancy Authority?
The funeral directors.
Oh, yes.
Trying to locate the beneficiaries,
yes.
But it hasn't been successful.
Yes, well, they probably won't give you any information because of the privacy laws.
That's right.
Yes.
They tried to get in touch with the next of kin, but I haven't heard anything back from them. Right.
Oh, well, look, if they're trying to get in touch with the next of kin, then I think it likely that someone will be in touch with you sooner than later. What I would be recommending that you do, Patrick, is make sure that you keep a record of the fact that you went and tried to pay the money. Is that the only... Do you have the address of the landlady on the tenancy agreement?
Yes, I have got her address.
All right.
She was a friend of mine.
Yeah, and is that local?
No, that's Harvey Bay.
All right. What I would suggest you do then is write a letter to the executors, care of her address in Harvey Bay, advising that you've tried to pay the rent and that's been unsuccessful, and would they please contact you to advise what you should do in relation to the payment of the rent. Because undoubtedly they will have a redirection of mail from the lady's address. Have you tried to ring her phone?
Yes, I've rung both phone numbers. One's been disconnected and the other one has been closed down.
Right, okay. All right, well, look, I think writing then would be the best idea, Patrick. Did you have an email address for her?
No, I haven't got any.
Okay. All right, look, just write a letter. Do you have a checkbook?
Yes.
All right, well, why don't you write out a cheque for the rent and post it to that address. That would be the other alternative. But probably better, I think, look, rather than send a cheque and the uncertainty given that she's passed away, I would simply suggest you write to the executors, estate of the late, whatever her name is, care of that address, and I would be very surprised if there wouldn't be a mail redirection in place for her mail and make sure you put a return to sender address on the back. So put your address on the back so it comes back if for any reason it doesn't get through. All right then, but make sure that you keep maintaining enough money in your account so that when someone does ultimately contact you, you've got enough money there to pay the rent when the total amount of the rent that's due by that date.
Okay, John.
Okay,
Thanks
Patrick,
for your help,
all the very best.
Okay.
Time on 4CRB is just coming up to 16 and a half minutes past 9. That's, of course, past 10 south of the border. As we say, a very good morning to Josephine. Good morning, Josephine. How are you today?
I'm not too bad, thank you.
That's good. How can we help?
I've got a question about, I have a joint bank account with my daughter. Mm-hmm. If I pass away, can she still draw on that account?
Yes, she will be able to. Are you both signatories on the account?
Yes, we're both. It's an equal account. Yeah.
All right, okay. So yes, she would be able to. Once the bank is aware of your passing, they may freeze the account, but production of a copy of your death certificate to the bank will mean that the bank will automatically transfer the account to the benefit of your daughter.
So that it will become her account.
Yes,
solely.
yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Josephine, all the very best.
You.
Time on 4CRB is just coming up to 17 and a half minutes past 9. We'll be back after this word from our sponsor.
Don't miss 25 to 50% off savings at Lazy Boy's massive Boxing Week sale. Like the Amato Leather Modular, now just $2,699. Or the Quality Canyon Recliner, now just $799. And for a short time only, get all 3 sizes at this low price. Hurry into your local Lazy Boy gallery today, while stocks last. Terms and conditions apply. Please see in-store for details. And our sponsor, Recline Furniture, 94 Upton Street, Bundall.
And this is 4CRB 89.3 FM. The program is The Law and You. This is your opportunity to get free legal advice. All we need you to do is get on that telephone as soon as you can. 55208888 is the number. That number again, 55208888. Now, there were a few other things that I was wanting to talk about last week in relation to insurance, but time didn't permit because of the number of callers that we had come in last week. But with the bushfires down south and now the rain and storm damage that's going on, it just really heightened in my mind the need to make sure that your insurances are all in order, and that you're dealing with reputable insurance companies. One of the things that people need to be very concerned about or careful about is to make sure that anything they're insuring is not underinsured. So if you're taking out insurance for the contents of your property, you need to make a reasonable estimate of what the value of the contents is to make sure that you are adequately insured. And of course, the same applies in relation to your home. So if you have insurance on your home, you need to make sure that you have sufficient cover for reinstatement of your home, and you also need to check whether the policy includes the costs of removal of debris and those sorts of things, because if you are underinsured, whether it be for your home or for your contents, then the insurance company very well may only pay out proportionally the amount of the claim. So say, for example, you've got $10,000 of cover on your contents, and you have a claim for $5,000 because your property gets flooded and the floor coverings need to be replaced. If the assessor comes in and assesses that the contents of your home is probably worth $30,000, then it may be that they will say, well, you've really underinsured for contents and therefore we're only going to pay 1/3 of the amount of the claim. And whilst on contents that could be disastrous enough, imagine if you've underinsured your home and as a result of that you don't get back sufficient money to reinstate your home. That could mean that you're needing to take out a mortgage, if you can get one, to pay for the balance of those costs. And particularly if you're retired, it may be that you're not in a position where you can take out a loan if you find that you're underinsured. The other thing that's arisen out of this as well is making sure that you're insured with a reputable insurance company. Now, it's all well and good that the insurer that you choose may have the cheapest premium, but it comes back to an old saying that I remember, that if you want the services of a monkey, be prepared to pay peanuts. And sometimes that cheapest insurance may not turn out to be the best insurance. It's all well and good when you're not making any claims and so your premiums are low and you're very happy about that. But when you come to make a claim, you want to make sure that you're dealing with an insurer who is going to deal properly with your claims and not be looking for loopholes to try and find ways of avoiding paying your claims. And I have heard some horror stories over the years of one that springs to mind was a claim that some people made in relation to the kitchen in their home, and which was damaged by flood. And they had put in their proposal for the insurance, and one of the questions was, have you had any claims within the last 5 years? And they answered no to that question. But what they'd forgotten was that they owned a rental property with some other partners. So they had a property which was not their home but just simply a rental property, and it was owned by 2 or 3 parties, and they had a claim in relation to that. Somehow or other the insurer found out that they had that property and there'd been a claim made, and then the insurer refused to pay out for the damage to the kitchen because they said, no, you failed to disclose that you'd had a claim within the last 5 years, even though you were only one of 2 or 3 people that owned that property. Still, that was a breach of the terms of the proposal, and it took ages to get that issue finally resolved. I think from memory they went to the insurance ombudsman and ultimately they did receive payment. But in the meantime, I think from memory it took something approaching 12 months for that issue to be resolved. So you can imagine what it would have been like to be living in a home where the kitchen's been completely ruined. You're reminded every day of the problem, and because you've chosen an insurance company which is cheap, you very well may end up paying for that later on in relation to a claim that you make. One of the best things that you can do when checking out insurance companies is to do a Google search and look at just ask for reviews. So if you're going to insure, if you're thinking about taking on ultra cheap insurance, Petey Wild today, well, do a search and say reviews on ultra cheap insurance and see what it says. And if there's comment after comment that people have had problems with the insurer, well, obviously it's an alarm bell, and one where you should be thinking seriously about whether you would bother with that insurance company. So just remember that little saying I mentioned earlier, that if you want the services of a monkey, be prepared to pay peanuts. We'll be back after this word from our sponsor.
Hey Mum, pop quiz. What's BYOD stand for?
It's bring your own device. And thanks to Harvey Norman, I know all about it.
Really?
Really. I've already been in to see the lovely staff there.
What'd you get? I don't want something different.
Don't worry. Harvey Norman knows what your school requires. And they've got on-site technicians and included phone support for when you muck it up.
Mum.
Getting back to school is easy with Harvey Norman. Tablets, notebooks, software, printers. Harvey Norman, your BYOD specialists. Get ready for BYOD in store today.
Our sponsor.
Did you know our sponsors, Animal Welfare League Queensland, rehomed nearly 9,500 abandoned animals last year? Or that AWLQ is committed to zero euthanasia of healthy, rehomable animals? Please support Animal Welfare League Queensland and choose to adopt your next dog or cat or make a donation. Your support will help change a life, possibly your own. Head to awlqld.com.au, adopt a pet, and see who's waiting to become part of your family.
This is the Law and You on 4CRB. Our phone number 55208888. Presently, we have no callers online at all. So if you have a quick question or a query, we've got about 4.5 minutes left where we could deal with that question, but you'll need to be quick. 55208888. Give us a call straight away. Now, you might remember that I spoke last week about the ACCC's action against Volkswagen Australia, and they were fined, I think, something in the order of $125 million. And I mentioned the fact that fine was imposed under the old penalty regime for the ACCC. They now have a new penalty regime which has lifted fines considerably, and I've been quite pleased to see the number of actions that the ACCC are taking in relation to various breaches of our consumer law to protect people and ensure that the ACCC acts as a major deterrent to people who might be tempted to do the wrong thing. Now, that being the case, though, it doesn't mean that you should be complacent and think, oh, well, if something goes wrong, the ACCC or the Consumer Affairs, the State Consumer Affairs Organisation will protect me, because there are massive amounts of money that are lost by people every year through scams, and those scams are becoming more and more sophisticated. Email scams, of course, we're aware of, and they are coming thick and fast to all of us. So just bear that in mind and make sure that you're ultra careful in relation to any emails received. But we've got time for one more caller, and that will be Joy. G'day, Joy. How are you? Hi, Joy. How are you?
Thank you.
That's good, Joy. How can I help?
Well, I don't know if I need you, but just listening to your talk back, you might be able to help. I've actually got a claim in with QCAT at the moment.
Yep.
I bought a massage chair that cost an arm and a leg, no pun intended. And after a year of an extended warranty, but it had 2 years of ordinary warranty, and after a year of having it basically further than your hip. And so we got in touch with them. They sent a repairman out. He spent 2 hours on the chair. Then he came again a few days later because his 2 hours had worked temporarily, but stopped as soon as he left.
Yep.
And then he came a third time. A different guy came, and he said, look, I'll sort your problems out, no worries at all. Spent 4 or 5 hours working on the chair, still didn't have any joy. Then the following time that they came, every time they stripped the chair down to bare bones, but on the 4th time, they discovered evidence of mice. So what they're now saying is that they won't pay anything because there were mice in the chair, but between the 2nd and the 4th visit, we had moved house, the doors of the chair in the garage because it wasn't working. So there was no point in having it in the house. And my husband went out that day and he bought mouse traps. Not a single, but there was definitely mouse excrement in the chair, in the base of the chair. When the guy saw that there was no smell because we've got dogs.
Yep.
And it just seemed very peculiar. We're not saying that they did anything, but they're trying to get out of it, saying...
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Joy, the only way you're going to be able to deal with that is through QCAT, because when a trader tries to seek to avoid their warranty through something like that, the fact that they stripped the chair back at least twice before is a fairly clear indication that there were ongoing problems. And, really, I would think that what they should do is they should replace the chair, because under the Australian consumer law, if the goods are not reasonably fit for the purpose, then you are entitled to a replacement, or your money back. So I would recommend that you pursue the claim through. You can only do that through QCAT. So pursue that claim through them. But we'll have to leave it there, Joy. Unfortunately, we're just pressing up to the local news. So I hope that's of some help to you. Well, we've got Mavis waiting online, but Mavis, if you're listening, could you please wait? I'll take that call offline. This is John Fradgley from the Bell Legal Group. It's been great to be with you this morning for another program of The Law and You. I look forward to being back with you again next Tuesday morning when hopefully we can answer more of your questions. But until then, as always, it's goodbye and God bless.